and this is my ride.
In 2006, a contestant's car caught fire on the highway. 5 years after MTV's cameras left, the wiring they installed started smoking. The whole thing burned down. But that wasn't even the worst part. Another contestant said his steering wheel completely detached while he was driving. MTV knew the cars weren't safe, but they filmed the reveals anyway. Then they made the contestants sign contracts that stopped them from talking.
It looked like somebody body slammed your car.
For years, nobody said a word. Today, we're uncovering what really happened behind the scenes of Pimp My Ride.
Oh my God! Oh!
And why the crew was forced to hide the truth. MTV was in trouble in the early 2000s. Music videos were no longer enough to keep viewers hooked. Reality TV was cheaper to produce and pulled better ratings. So in March 2004, MTV launched Pimp My Ride, a show that looked fun, felt uplifting, and most importantly, cost very little to make. The average vehicle upgrade only cost between $15,000 to $20,000 per episode. That was a bargain compared to music video licensing or scripted TV shows. Co-creator Rick Hurwitz said the show was built to appeal to the 18 to 34 age group. Young people struggling with money, who would connect with the idea of turning a broken-down car into something wild and flashy. The formula worked. Ratings shot up. The show became a massive hit for the network. The face of it all was Exhibit. Not because he knew anything about cars. He actually admitted he didn't. "I just picked up the car and I dropped off the car," he said in interviews. He didn't do any of the work, but his image, his voice, his vibe fit exactly what MTV wanted. He was hip-hop, he was cool, and he made things look real even when they weren't. That's all the network cared about. The real car work was done by West Coast Customs, a shop in California that said yes to everything MTV demanded. Fast timelines, low budgets, big visuals, and the truth was, they cut corners everywhere to keep things moving. Exhaust pipes were sometimes just for show. Engines made fake noises. Safety? Not always a priority. They once removed a muffler and didn't replace it. Another car got flamethrower pipes that would never pass inspection. One contestant called his finished car a polished turd because it looked cool but wouldn't even run properly. Co-producer Larry Hochberg had to coordinate tow trucks because cars kept breaking down after filming. They literally kept a tow truck ready at all times. The people getting these cars were usually broke young students. Take Christine Allende. She was 19, caring for her 83-year-old grandmother, and her 1992 Honda Civic was falling apart. The doors didn't work, the alarm never stopped, and the only wheel she had was a spare tire. Producers knew this. They wanted people like her. It made for better TV, but they also took the cars away for 6 to 7 months. MTV gave contestants $2,000 for rentals, but many of them were underage and couldn't rent from proper companies. Some, like Seth Martino, had to go to shady places with sketchy cars. He didn't even get reimbursed for 2 years. That happened more than once. Contestants either paid out of pocket or were left without a car entirely while MTV filmed. The workshop they used didn't always fix the real problems. One car had engine trouble and got a fake tailpipe just to make noise. Another had no working transmission, but they still went ahead and added bright lights and paint. West Coast Customs once sold one of these cars a month later. Not to a buyer, but to an audio company that didn't even drive it. They just didn't want people to see how poorly it was built. MTV also faked a lot of things. They had an age limit. Contestants had to be 22 or younger. If someone was older, they just lied. Brooke Siegel was 25, but they called her a 22-year-old film lover. She was actually a cocktail waitress. They even rented houses for the big surprise scenes when Exhibit showed up. Contestants had to redo their reactions 5 to 10 times until they got it right. Jake Glazier remembered being pulled aside by a huge crew member who told him to act more excited because they had put a lot of work into this. It wasn't just faked, it was intimidating. To find more desperate people, MTV put up flyers at community colleges and poor neighborhoods where they knew people drove old, broken cars. Then they dragged filming out for half a year. That $2,000 rental budget ran out fast. Justin Dieringer said 1 month of rentals cost $1,000 alone. He had to figure out the rest on his own. Some were too young to even qualify for proper rentals. Seth Martino got stuck with a shady freeway car rental that barely ran. MTV stopped paying halfway through production. Contestants paid the rest themselves. Again, refunds came years later. And the contracts these people signed? They basically gave MTV full control over their lives. Everything was legal, on paper. Participants gave up the right to sue. MTV could edit them however they wanted. That's how Jake Glazier's grandmother ended up looking like a chain-smoking stereotype. They threw cigarette butts into his car for effect, even though she never smoked. For Seth Martino, they made up a story about him loving candy. They dumped generic candy into his seats and put a cotton candy machine in his trunk just to push a joke about his weight. "I know I'm fat," he said later, "but they went the extra mile to make me look extra fat." A producer even told Jake to break up with his girlfriend because it would make for a better story if he looked alone and sad. Hochberg later denied it, but contestants say it happened. Producers dug deep into contestants' personal lives to find anything embarrassing. They searched for weird habits, family drama, relationship problems, anything they could use for laughs or emotional moments. They even pressured contestants to make up stuff about their own families. Seth's grandmother got dragged into one of these storylines, even though she never agreed to be part of the show. Every weakness they found was used for entertainment. The cars they picked were also part of the setup. They turned away anyone with a decent car. They wanted vehicles that were so far gone that viewers would forgive the mechanical failures. Larry Hochberg once admitted some were in such bad shape that nothing could save them. That way, when things went wrong after filming, they could just blame the old car. They rarely touched engines or transmissions. Instead, they slapped on chrome, added screens, maybe a fish tank or a cotton candy machine, and called it a transformation. They always had tow trucks standing by in case the cars couldn't drive away after the reveal. And often, they couldn't. Jake's car was one of them. Despite all this, the show exploded in popularity. It launched globally. By 2005, there was Pimp My Ride UK with DJ Tim Westwood. Then Pimp My Ride International with Fat Joe and Lil Jon. By 2007, there was Pimp My Ride Brazil, and even one in the Baltics. Indonesia made Pimp My Car. The original show ran for 6 seasons until 2007. At first, West Coast Customs did the work, but later it shifted to Galpin Autosports. 20 years later, in 2024, co-creator Rick Hurwitz brought a reboot to Netflix called Resurrected Rides, hosted by Chris Redd. MTV made millions. There was a video game by Activision in 2006 for PlayStation 2, Xbox 360, PSP, and Wii. It didn't get great reviews, the gameplay was repetitive, and the physics were bad. But it sold because of the show's popularity. There were toys, accessories, and a full-blown brand. Meanwhile, contestants got nothing. No money, no royalties, just the cars, which they often couldn't afford to maintain or fix. Many paid thousands out of pocket later just to get them running. One said flatly that his car was unusable. MTV also forced contestants to fake scenes. Justin Dieringer's car had a champagne bottle holder and a drive-in theater setup, but both were removed after filming. They were only there for TV. Contestants had to redo their wow moments 10 times or more. Big Dane, the security guy, would stand nearby telling them to be more enthusiastic. The truth was always hidden. Even the filming locations were fake. They weren't real homes. They were rented houses used to stage the reveals. The internet made it worse and better. Exhibit's line, "Yo dog," became one of the most famous memes ever. In 2007, 4chan started it. In 2008, Reddit picked it up. Tumblr followed. It became one of the longest-running memes in internet history. The joke format, "Yo dog, I heard you like X, so I put an X in your Y, so you can Z while you Z," went viral. Know Your Meme tracked over 2.8 million views, but for Exhibit, it hurt. In 2018, on The Breakfast Club, he admitted the show damaged his career. "I wasn't able to tour. I wasn't able to continue building Exhibit as an MC. It, all of a sudden, almost became bigger than the music," he said. People saw him as a meme, not a serious rapper. He joked that soccer moms recognized him more than hip-hop fans, and that was the price he paid. Jake Glazier remembers how everything shifted the moment he didn't react the way the crew expected. It was season 4, and he had just seen his revamped 1986 Buick Century. All he said was, "This is good." That was enough to cause tension. One of the crew members, a guy nicknamed Big Dane, who Jake said was a very big dude, pulled him aside for what he described as a quiet but clear warning. For 10 full minutes, Big Dane had his arm around Jake's shoulder, walking him around the West Coast Customs shop. Then came the real message. "Listen, we put a lot of work into this. We expect you to be a little more fucking enthusiastic." Jake told HuffPost later that if it were up to him, he would have ended filming right then and there because, in his words, it's really not that serious. But under that kind of pressure, it didn't feel like a choice. Reactions weren't just encouraged, they were controlled. Contestants were told to reshoot their reveal moment again and again. Brooke Siegel said she had to fake her first reaction at least 10 times before she even saw her actual car. The car, which she later called Barbie's dream car from hell, wasn't even something she liked. Justin Dieringer said the same thing happened to him. "We had to take a lot of takes over and over and over and over and over and over again." Seth Martino had to redo his car reveal 3 times, and it didn't stop there. With every retake, producers became more demanding. The energy had to keep rising until the reaction reached what they called apeshit level. Loud, wild, and camera-ready, even if the car itself felt useless. But for some, the manipulation didn't end with performance. Jake said MTV producers actively tried to change his real-life relationship. They told him directly that it would be better for the storyline if he broke up with his girlfriend. The idea was that a desperate single guy trying to impress women with a cool car was better TV than someone already in a relationship. Basically, either get rid of her or have her not be a part of the program, Jake said they told him. He said it felt like they were trying to write his life just to fit a script, even if it hurt real people. Seth Martino faced something else entirely. He already knew he was overweight, but the producers made sure to exaggerate it. They told the audience that he kept candy all over his car, just in case he got hungry. But Seth says they staged that whole thing by dumping 2 full bags of candy into the car just before filming. Then they added a cotton candy machine in his trunk. It didn't even work. There was no lid, and Seth believed it was chosen because of his weight. "I think they just wanted to install a cotton candy machine and used the fat guy as an opportunity." He said it felt cruel, and that the whole thing was designed to humiliate. When contestants pushed back or tried to speak out, MTV's legal team stepped in fast. The contracts included strict non-disparagement clauses. If anyone talked negatively about the show, they'd get hit with cease and desist letters. Most contestants didn't have the money to fight back. They couldn't afford lawyers. So for years, nobody talked. People just stayed quiet, stuck under contracts that threatened to bury them if they told the truth. All this just for a car makeover that often didn't even hold up. Even the iconic surprise knock at the door was fake. The homes weren't real. MTV rented them just for filming. Seth Martino said they found his house on Craigslist because he actually lived in an apartment, but they needed a big driveway to film the scene. Jake from Season 3 said it wasn't his house either. It belonged to a crew member. Contestants were told to wait inside and that someone would come knock. Maybe they'd get a $100 Pep Boys gift card. Maybe it would be Exhibit. The shock you saw on TV came from that last-minute trick, not genuine surprise. For Brooke Siegel, the setup became even more ridiculous. She said she had to act out her reaction to Exhibit arriving multiple times. Then producers pressured her to do a cartwheel. She gave in, but later regretted it. She also pointed out that even her age and job were faked. On TV, she was presented as a 22-year-old film student. In reality, she was a 25-year-old cocktail waitress. And for the big car reveal, they filmed her response 10 times before she ever laid eyes on the car. Everything was staged. By the time Exhibit walked up to the door, the production crew had already been at the house for hours. There were lighting setups, sound gear, and camera placements done ahead of time. Seth Martino remembered being told he was in the running for an episode, along with 2 others. They all waited inside rented houses. Whoever got the knock from Exhibit won. Another contestant confirmed the same thing. If it was Exhibit, they won. All those scenes were rehearsed, planned, and carefully shot after hours of setup. There was no spontaneity. Keeping the secret didn't stop after filming. Contestants had to lie to friends and family for months. They couldn't reveal the filming dates, car status, or even the fact they had already met Exhibit. Directors told them how to react and how loud to scream. Justin Dieringer said they made him jump around and scream during retakes. Jake Glazier once again remembered Big Dane walking him around the shop, telling him to show more excitement. All of it was acting. None of it was real. Even the people around them weren't always real. If someone's family didn't fit the storyline or couldn't make it to set, the producers would hire actors to play their loved ones. Real parents and siblings were sometimes replaced with strangers. In Jake's case, they pushed him to ditch his girlfriend to make the story more dramatic. And the cool gadgets? Often fake. Seth Martino had a robotic arm installed in his car that looked impressive. But it didn't work. It was controlled by someone off-screen with a laptop. One of the most shocking moments came straight from Exhibit himself. He once admitted that during one episode, a contestant was driving their freshly pimped car when the steering wheel completely detached from the column, while the car was moving. If that had happened on the highway, it could have killed someone. It turned out the cars weren't even fully ready when they filmed the reveals. Some had to go back to the shop for another week just to finish the job after filming. What the audience saw was a lie. Justin Dieringer found that out the hard way. 5 years after his episode, his RAV4 caught fire. He was driving with his girlfriend when the sound system shut off. Smoke filled the car, and the hydraulic setup started to burn. The entire car was engulfed in flames. Justin had spent over $20,000 of his own money on repairs and upgrades, but he blamed MTV's electrical wiring for the fire. The modifications had overloaded the vehicle. Seth Martino's car broke down just 1 month after he got it back. His 1989 Nissan Maxima had waited 7 months in the shop. When he finally got it, the engine failed. West Coast Customs had added gull-wing doors, LED lights, and a cotton candy machine, but they hadn't touched the engine. Seth had to pay $1,700 out of pocket to get it running again. He said it felt like getting a polished turd. Looked good, but didn't work. The weight of the modifications made things even worse. Contestants said their cars felt unsafe. Heavy electronics, hydraulic systems, hot tubs, TVs, even cotton candy machines, all of it was packed into old cars without upgrading the suspension or brakes. Seth said his car felt like a boat that bottomed out over bumps. People had to drive slow just to stay safe. Braking got harder. Steering became unpredictable. Some cars were dangerously overloaded. And the LED lights everyone loved on camera? Seth said they got so hot they became a burn risk. If left on too long, they could overheat or catch fire. Other contestants reported blown fuses and smoking wires. The factory wiring systems just weren't built to handle that kind of load. Technicians rushed the job. Cables were tangled, circuits overloaded, and safety wasn't a priority. Contestants were left with fire traps disguised as dream cars. In 2006, Justin Dieringer joined Season 6 of Pimp My Ride with a 1997 Toyota RAV4. When MTV aired the episode, his car had a pop-up champagne dispenser and a drive-in theater system. But the moment filming wrapped up, both were removed. Producers said it was because of street safety and drinking laws. But it wasn't a mistake. Co-executive producer Larry Hochberg later admitted they installed wild features on purpose just for TV, knowing they'd be taken out later. He said 24-inch rims on a 1977 Cutlass would be visually appealing for television. But in reality, they would install smaller 20s so the car could actually drive. Dieringer's car was gone for 5 months. MTV gave him just $2,000 for a rental. He rented a car for 1 month, pocketed the rest, and made do. But it didn't end there. To make the before scenes look more dramatic, the crew even made his bumper dent worse before filming. Then, 5 years later, the car caught fire due to faulty wiring. The whole thing burned down. The entire MTV build was destroyed. Seth Martino also joined Season 6 with a 1989 Nissan Maxima. MTV gave him a cotton candy machine in the trunk. It looked fun, but they hadn't measured properly. There wasn't space for the dome cover. He used it once, for the camera. Sugar flew everywhere inside the car. After that, it became a useless mess. But the mods didn't stop at sugar. They loaded his car with electronics and extra weight, but didn't upgrade the suspension. The car sagged. He said it drove like a boat. Just 1 month later, he had to replace the whole engine because of failures ignored during filming. His verdict was clear. I wanted a car that worked. I didn't get that from them. He also got a robotic arm. On camera, it looked like some futuristic AI assistant. In real life, it didn't work at all. It was a fake arm with wires hanging out. Every time it moved, a guy off camera controlled it using a laptop. Seth realized it was all staged. The arm had no purpose except to look impressive on TV. They weren't the only ones fooled. Many contestants across different seasons got similar fake robotic arms. The show sold these as advanced tech, but they were just props. When cameras rolled, the screens, lights, and gaming systems worked perfectly. But right after filming, most of them stopped working. Seth's TV screens never came back on. His LED seat lights became so hot they couldn't be used. He said, "They would get really hot if left on, so I couldn't drive with them on." The electronics were rigged only for showtime, not for real use. Poor wiring and rushed jobs meant that once MTV left, the gear became dead weight. Across the show's seasons, DVD players, consoles, and audio systems failed within days. Hochberg even admitted they had a flatbed tow truck on standby during filming. That's how unreliable the cars were. While MTV made it look like car transformations happened in a few days, in reality, it took 6 to 7 months. Justin's car was held for 5 months. Seth's was gone for 7. During this time, they were stuck. No car, no help, Seth was in West Covina and had to get to LAX monthly just to pay for a shady rental car. He was under 21, so major rental companies wouldn't even rent to him. MTV didn't help. They chose young contestants, knowing full well these kids would face rental discrimination. Seth had to rent from a tiny company off the freeway that didn't accept phone payments. Every month, he swiped his card in person. MTV gave each contestant $2,000 to cover car rentals. But that wasn't enough. Seth and Justin both burned through it in a month or two. The rest of the time, they had to figure it out themselves. In Seth's case, he saved every receipt, hoping for reimbursement. It took 2 years before MTV paid him back. 2 full years. During this time, he was a student and had no money. MTV, on the other hand, kept airing his episode and making millions from ad revenue. It was like the contestants gave free loans to a billion-dollar company. They were never paid for being on the show. Not $1. Not even for promotional work. Meanwhile, Viacom and MTV made millions. The show became one of the most successful programs on MTV. They sold DVDs, made merch, took all the money. Even Exhibit, the show's host, was paid only $5,000 per episode, and even he got scammed. Viacom removed his name and music from later DVDs to avoid paying him royalties. He was promised 15% of merch sales. He never got it. Contestants had it worse. They got no money and a tax bill instead. The IRS counted the modifications as gifts. Some had to sell their cars just to pay taxes. In December 2018, during a Breakfast Club interview, Exhibit admitted that the show wrecked his career. He couldn't tour, couldn't record, couldn't grow as an artist. Each car took half a year to film. That's time he could have spent making albums. He said, "I wasn't able to continue building Exhibit as an MC." MTV didn't help promote his music either. They just made Pimp My Ride bigger. Way bigger. Soon, he wasn't being stopped by hip-hop fans. Soccer moms were recognizing him. He said, "It became like soccer moms and shit like that coming up." That stung. His image was gone. He felt like he had sold out. The show became more popular than his music. It ranked just below The Real World in ratings. And instead of cheering for him at concerts, people were asking about trunk TVs. Years later, Exhibit couldn't hide his frustration. He reacted to participants' horror stories on YouTube in 2020. Someone got a chandelier in their car. He said, "I didn't tell them to put a chandelier in your car." He wanted real upgrades: engine, exhaust, paint. But producers wanted wild ideas that looked cool for TV. He played along. He'd walk onto the set and say, "Let's go, day work, let's go." He didn't care. He was just finishing a job. When people started talking about how bad the cars were, Exhibit distanced himself from West Coast Customs. He said he had no role in the actual work. Seth's Maxima got heavier, the suspension stayed the same, and 1 month later, the engine blew. In some cases, modifications made cars unsafe. Lamborghini-style doors made seatbelts unusable. Flamethrowers were installed, then removed before contestants even saw them. Exhibit said, "I just put gas in the motherfucker and drive it." He made it clear he wasn't responsible. But he never forgot how MTV treated him. When he asked for $1 million to come back from tour and film another episode, they replaced him, for 1 episode, with Chamillionaire. They told him straight up, anybody with braids can do what Exhibit does. He got nothing from West Coast Customs' success. When asked if he'd ever bring the show back, his answer was final. Only if he got ownership. He said, "The people that have the rights. Let me know early on that I'm not part of that." The show used his face, his voice, his street cred, and left him behind.